Welcome, welcome to Café con Leadership. I'm excited to have today Claudia Romo Edelman. Welcome, Claudia. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you for inviting me and having a café con leadership. I like
I
that
know.
for a Friday
¿Tienen,
afternoon.
¿Tienen cafecito tuyo o no?
Café frío.
Awesome. I'm so happy to have you here because you are, especially the topics that we have going on today, and you speak a lot about it, and you are a powerhouse voice on some of these topics, and we want to impact the Latino community. And I'm like, who better than you, to really showcase and help us in this
Thank
journey.
you so much. Absolutely.
Yay. So let's start with you've traveled around the world, have spoken to many Latinos. What do you feel initially is the reason why we're not utilizing our power? Maybe we are now starting more to, but what could be some of the reasons why we haven't in the past?
We are doing it more. Um, but that was the biggest question I had. Like I moved to America 6 years ago, and that was the first time in my life that I heard that I was a Hispanic. I never heard that term before. I lived like a happy Mexican my entire life, never knew that that word existed. And then I was very excited. I lived 25 years in Europe, and I was very excited. And I was telling my friends in Switzerland, I'm going to be a Hispanic. And that's a new word that means power and means growth, because guess what? We're 60 million people, 18% of the population. We are 12% of the GDP. That means 12% of the salary of every person every month is generated by Latinos today. Like with a number of communities that I was trying to work for and defend, like gender and so on, it's a potential 12% of GDP if you give every woman a chance. You would eventually get 12% of the gross domestic product. Latinos are 12% of the gross domestic product without having to do anything, without no need for any chance, nothing. It's massive. And I was super excited to tell them, like my friends, that we were so young, that, like the youngest of all, the most profitable of all, the most growing of all. And then all of a sudden I moved to America, and I didn't feel that majority, and I didn't feel you're welcome, that I was like, every time I came to America, and like at the beginning, so like, I'm a Latina. I expected oh my God, thank you so very much. And here's the red carpet. Please come in. We owe you. Thank you. And I didn't get it. So I started wondering why? Why are we so powerful, but we are seen so weak? Why are we so big, but we think so small? And I don't think that it's not that we're not using our power, is we're not accessing our power. It is there. It is if you're like a small, thin boy, and all of a sudden you grow and you weight lift so much that you all of a sudden become like, like Hulk man, and you're a super bulky and muscly teenager, and someone wants to hit you, and you're like still feeling like that little boy, and you feel like, oh no, please don't do anything to me. That's exactly what it felt when I started looking at this. And it's not a matter of muscles. We are muscly. We just don't know it. Or we have that fear of the past when we were not that strong. And and for me, it's all about one thing. It's unification. And when we're united, we know that the muscles are together. When we're united, it doesn't matter if you're Mexican, Colombian, Venezuela, you know that we're 60 million. When we're united, then we can drink together the Kool-Aid and say, I know it feels weird, but we're powerful, we're strong. I know it's so weird, right? Because we don't know that, but Latinos are beautiful, are powerful, and America cannot grow without Latinos, and that is changing right now. The more every day there's more consciousness, there's more collective power, there's more Latinos coming out as Latinos, there's more Latinidad, and there's more trend to be ourselves. And people that used to pretend to be George when they are Jorge are coming back to their names and say like, yeah, learn how to say it, Jorge. It feels good, because in 2050, one in every four will be Hispanics in America. Can you imagine that? Hello, 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 hola. Hello, 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 hola. That's the future. So people have to get like people have to learn how to say Jorge. That's going to be the norm, and it's happening. But we have to actually be a bit more aggressive about being assertive of understanding that Hispanics are powerful, not weak. We are positive, not negative. We are makers and not takers.
You're so inspiring, and I always love hearing you because it resonates, and it's so true. So tell us a little bit about We Are All Human and Hispanic Star, the mission, the vision.
I have 25 years of being a global mobilization expert. So I do campaigns. I mobilize globally normally for big campaigns, whether it's vaccination, whether it's education, whether it's like for AIDS, and so on. So I've been doing that for organizations like the United Nations, UNICEF, the UN Refugee Agency, and I am an optimist. I'm actually better than an optimist. I think that I'm a possibilistic because I've seen change happen, so I know it's possible. So I'm a possibilistic about like the things that I engage in, and the world is making progress despite being bombarded by negative news. We are getting better as a humanity. We are getting more education. We are getting more electricity. If you would be a baby girl flying in the sky, there would be no better time to be born than today. Not in the caves, not in the Middle Age, not 10 years ago, not 5 years ago. This is better. Even if we don't see it, it is better, the macro terms. Except that there are a couple of things that really concern me, and one of them was that divisive language was getting by far more traction. So a couple of years ago, I decided to create the World Human Foundation to do one thing: remind people that we are all human, that we forget that we belong to the same human family. It's almost like if you think that what happens to your hand is not going to affect your body if you cut it, or if you put a knife on your leg and you think that you're not going to have a headache. We're connected, we're one, and what happens with one part like affects the other. And the problem of forgetting that we belong to the same human family is that sense of the otherness is dangerous for the world, because then you think that other people don't have the same rights that you have, don't have the same rights to education, to health, and so on. And then you start having, and I created the World Human Foundation to knowing that the types of things could happen that have unfortunately happened and will continue happening unless we put a stop. I knew that this could lead to populism, to Brexits, to George Floyd's, to like social revolts and injustices, and diversity and inclusion will be the next big flags. Young people want to be respected, want to be tolerated. They are not going to be labeled one thing only. And you have to have that tolerance and that acceptance for people to be able to be themselves. And World Human started with that, and immediately looked at my first and most important, personal story, which is Latinos. Me as a mother, I got married. I moved to America 6 years ago, and 3 years ago I got married to an American, and I was like, I'm fried. This decision means I'm staying here, but because of my decision, my daughter is going to make 50% of the salary that she could make elsewhere, because she's a Latina, because of my choice, because Latinos are not seen, not heard, not valued. And knowing what I know and having seen what I've seen, I cannot actually just like stand here. I have to do something so that we can, one, unify, because that's really the key for everything that we have to solve for the Hispanic community. But number two, change our perception. So I created the Hispanic Star, treating it the way that you would treat any product. So understanding what are the flaws. We're fragmented and we're blind. We're blind to our own power, and we're really fragmented. So creating a solution was to create a symbol to unify us all, the way that the rainbow is for the LGBTQ, and really bring together allies and non-allies to be able to have a symbol that you can express and say, like, I'm simpatico to your cause, even if I'm not to the LGBTQ. Latinos don't have that. And we're all put in the same basket, but we don't, like Mexican, Colombians, Venezuelans, we are different. But we can be united in one thing, which is to be seen as stars, as contributors, as what we are. 100% Hispanics, 100% American, and probably 100% whatever your nationality of origin is, because we're able to be 300% of a person. And just like give us a platform to showcase the incredible contributions that we have. And so we have a symbol. We have a group of people that believe on it, and every revolution really starts with a small group of people that have the same dream and want to echar pa'lante juntos. And now with this platform, we will not stop until every kid, every church, every school, every person, every company knows that Hispanics are nothing but stars.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Why do you think we are so divisive as a community or communities?
Divided. This is not unique to the Hispanic community,
Correct.
but division happens with sight and with fear, and in our case, we are a unique combination of actually like this Hispanic word or Latino, Latinx, whatever you feel comfortable with, is an invention. It doesn't exist. Someone in the census many years ago decided not to call us M or OTM, Mexican or other than Mexican, in the census forms, and just like created something to put us all in one basket, Latinos or Hispanics. And so all of us have a fear of losing our roots deeply inside because we've seen our generations coming, first generation, second generation, third generation, 600 generation. We want to be connected to where we were, our roots. And when you all of a sudden disconnect, you have a fear. And also, we're not one group. I mean, like, we're many groups, 26 different origins of groups that have different taste, the way that you have friends that have different tastes than you and so on. So we're not one. We are scared of losing our roots, but also we are inside of bubbles because we moved to America looking for new opportunities. Our parents, grandparents, great-great-grandparents. We're inside of bubbles. When you're inside of a bubble, one, you think that you're small, that the air is, like that it is small because you're limited. But the most important part, I think, that for us to understand is that when you're inside of a bubble, you think that the air is limited, and that if there's someone inside of your bubble, it's a threat to the oxygen that you need. And you have to understand how dangerous that is, because that's why we elbow each other. We don't support each other because we think there's a seat on the table only. And if we would be able to burst that bubble, to pinch it out, we would be able to actually see big, right? Like how great this is, but also to understand that there's no limitation of air. The air is abundant. If you breathe and I breathe, it's okay. And we can all breathe. And there's no what seat at the table because there is no table. There's only one country full of opportunities for Latinos to thrive and blossom as long as we support each other. And we need to understand that we don't have to lose who we are to be Latinos united. We can be like the Chinese and the Japanese, that they have their own identities and food and color. And by the way, they have more historic differences than anyone else. And yet they are the Asia society. They unify as the Asia society when it comes to asking for scholarships or asking for entries in universities. So what is our shared dream as Latinos? We can be and have our own differences, but we have to have an agenda that allows us to thrive, that allows us to be paid, that allows us to have more senior people every time more, to allow us to rule a country whenever we have a president Latino, will be the result of us helping each other.
Absolutely. What do you think when it comes to what's your take on diversity and inclusion? Because you mentioned that before.
Diversity and inclusion within companies is essential. It's essential. It's one of the key things that we're working on. 76% of Latinos have to pretend they're someone they're not in the workplace. We have 34%. 34% of every of Latinos are bullied in the workplace, and 60% of every hate crime happens against a Latino. So we have to understand we've been rejected. We have that scar, and we have to pretend we're someone we're not when we go through the workplace. That's a shame. It's an absolute shame for everybody. That's an absolute shame for companies, because we're going to leave that place immediately and try to find a place where we can be ourselves, where we can be accepted. It's a shame for companies because we're not bringing our emotional engagement. We're leaving ourselves at home. We're bringing someone we don't even know. So forget about real commitment. And so if we diversity and inclusion for companies is business, is money, and is recruitment, and people want to show leg. Companies need to be showing leg that they're Hispanic friendly because we're so young. We're the future workforce. So you will have a chance to choose from one company that is openly Hispanic friendly and one that is not. So you obviously will have a choice. And so we have a tool called the Hispanic Promise, the first of a kind corporate pledge to hire, promote, retain, and celebrate Hispanics in the workplace. It's been signed by more than 180 companies. It's backed by more than 30 Hispanic organizations, and every day more companies have to make a promise to Hispanics, a promise to, respect us, help us grow, and deliver us as employees.
So I was talking to someone recently, and we were talking about D&I, and that companies are understanding the importance of including the diversity. They're hiring more minority, Black and brown community, and putting them in positions. But I'm hearing that some of the issues are the inclusive part. So while they're thinking that they are being diverse by having employed individuals that fit that bracket, they're not necessarily including them in big decisions or important things. What are your thoughts on that?
For me, diversity. I mean, like like our organization is 100% focused on inclusion, not on diversity. We are diverse. Look around. The world is already pretty diverse. We just have to make it more inclusive,
Yeah.
so that we can achieve equity. So but diversity matters when it comes to making sure that you have a quota. If I look at Hispanics, 18% of the population, we're 3% in tech. Those are the issues that we need to address with diversity. Like, we need 18% of Hispanics because we're 18% of the population, at least in tech. We should be par with, like we have the par with the population. But when having a number of Hispanics in your organization just by crowdsourcing, catering, or cleaning doesn't work. Catering and just like having more Hispanics within your organization without making sure that there's inclusive environments, it's a loss and it's a waste of time because people leave. The revolving doors happen when you anyways, like bring Hispanics and they cannot be themselves and they are not accepted and they are like when there are microaggressions against all of us, and when we don't understand who we are not diversity, all of us. You could like there's such a thing about like aggregation of companies that have started in this journey, which I understand, but I want to invite every company not to aggregate diversity, meaning women, like everything but white man is in this bucket. That doesn't really work because like African American are very different than Latinos, and it have very different challenges than disabled people, and very different, like challenges than others. And I know it's complicated, but the world is complicated, and like the population is like that. And if you want to sell to 18% of Hispanics, you have to understand that you want to see. That not 18% of Hispanics, 18% of the population, which is Hispanic. You have to understand Hispanics. You need 3 Hispanics in a corporate room so that they feel comfortable to speak up. You need 2 women in a corporate room to speak up. You need 3 Hispanics. That's how we are. And if you're a manager and if you're a peer and you don't know that, you might think we're not interested. We're, like we're not participatory. We might be just like thinking of something else. We need someone to encourage us to talk. We need, particularly if we're one Latino, one token Latino, that is also very hard because if we don't have role models where you can see it, you can be it, you don't have an inclusive environment where you feel that you can speak up, and you don't have someone poking you to say, what do you think, Sandra? What is your opinion about this? It's going to be very hard for us. It's going to be very hard for us to participate. So it's very important to have that curiosity, that conversation. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable with Hispanics. It just has to have a conversation about like, do you like how do you get the opinion of your Hispanics on whether they feel comfortable? Is employee surveys is about like being curious, but it's also understanding best practices from many companies that have successfully managed to create inclusive environments for Latinos.
I'm like eager to see more of that, evolve.
And I just mentioned one part of the equation, which is what companies can do to create inclusive environments. There's the other part of the tango partner, which is us. What can we do as Latinos to be more, like to be proactive in helping ourselves by helping our community, by helping our, like our companies to achieve that and to feel better. It's not only one way all, like
Absolutely.
we have to play a role. And in this area, I think that we're shy of talking. I hear a lot of like companies should. There's the other part, which is Latinos should.
Right.
And here's the thing: we're not. We get paid less than other groups, particularly Latinas, and it's not at the low paid jobs; it's at the higher paid jobs. Every time that a Latina goes up in the ranking of corporate America, the salary distance starts getting there. So we're paid 85% of the dollar in low paid jobs, 45% of the dollar when you're senior positions. And investigating the reasons why, and what are the things that we can do as Latinos individually. One is understand what is the part that we have to own as employee, and those are self-promotion, self-advocacy, mentorship. Have a mentor. If you don't have a mentor, ask for one immediately. Have a sponsor if you don't have a mentorship program in the organization. And that means, just one second. Have a mentor, have a sponsor that can actually just try to get you to sponsor you in the way that like you can actually elevate your growth within the organization. Obviously, everything starts with impeccable work. So working hard for us is intrinsic, but not in the hours. It should be on the quality. And then once we have the quality of the work that we can deliver, let's make sure that we're clever about packaging it properly, about saying, these are the results I'm getting. This is the, like making sure that we're able to speak up in places. If we cannot do it ourselves, talk to a peer, say like, we're shy, we don't bark, we don't bite, we work. If you just say that, someone else will actually be able to encourage you to speak and to be able to advocate for you. Self-advocacy starts by asking whomever does the advocacy for you, but you have to do it. And the self-promotion goes the same way. But there's the other part about like or Latinos that work in corporations with this, which is unity. Unite and be united. If you have an employee resource group, be part of that and make sure that you're clever, that you don't use this employee resource group to have bad margaritas, like on Fridays with a half an hour of like tacos or whatever. It's not only about food, color, and drinks. It's great to have that, but it's more important to see how do we actually be clever and strategic about being together so that each of us can succeed. And then also, how do we actually make sure, knowing that there's absolutely no way that companies can survive without diversity and inclusion, how do you actually become important for the company and say, like, give me resources for my employee resource group because I will help you understand the Hispanic market better. I will help you to understand how to create an inclusive culture inside of the organization better so that you can hire more. So there is the part of what we can do, which is at the individual level, but also at the solidarity level within the organization and others.
I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because one thing when I was in the corporate world, it's the idea that we have to self-educate as well. We have to be the seekers. If we want a higher promotion, we want to move up the ladder, it's up to us. There are very little companies that are going to say, here are the things. Those exist, obviously, but for the most part, not a lot of Latinos are given coaches or mentors or here is how you can become the, tap into your potential by using and utilizing these resources.
And the only thing, Sandra, there is that change happens when you equip people with the tools they need to make change happen. And so that's why our commitment as the World Human Foundation and the Hispanic Star is to equip the community. We have a unifying messaging framework available for everybody. We have data for everybody to know the power of Latinos and to know the power of the market. And we have things like tools and assets ready to go. So if you are New York. So if we have a PowerPoint presentation ready to go called Pitch It to Your Boss, so that we can actually, just like anyone can just like take it and go to their boss and say like, did you know that the Hispanic community is massively important as consumers and employees? We have presentations about diversity and inclusion. We have presentations about industries. We have everything that we try to equip people so that change can happen. Because the more equipped we are, the easier it is for you to be able to go to your manager and say, I would love to organize an event in Hispanic Heritage Month talking about how to advance Latinos in this company. Who will resist that? I would like to talk to you about how to understand the Hispanic market better as a company, what are the opportunities we have. So if you have it ready to go, it's much easier to make change happen.
Yeah. Are you hearing that the companies are being receptive to individuals that are going, that not the companies that you are particularly connected with, but the feedback from the community as a whole? Are they getting that same response?
Employee resource groups are the magic ingredient. Like what we're doing honestly is just making sure, and this is Sandra, this is just because I've seen it in so many other countries and so many other campaigns and so many, like, not in America, not for Hispanics, but I've seen communities come out of nothing and thrive with a third of what the Hispanic community has. I know it's possible, and one of the tricks is to make sure that people are equipped. And so employee resource groups are the magic ingredient. We are committed to equipping employee resource groups and Hispanics in general, so that wherever you are, you can talk to your church, to your club, to your sports team, to your family, to your friends, and so on, so that we can have that transformation of our community. And the other thing is, when you have a bottom-up sandwich magic, like a magic sandwich, things happen. Employee resource groups within corporations are the magic, are the power. But when we come in and we go to places like the World Economic Forum in Davos, or we go to the Cannes Advertisement Festival, where all the decision makers, resource allocators of the world are there, and then we put them in their ears. We say, like, we're gonna bring you will.i.am to tell you how great Hispanics are. We're gonna talk to you about like this lost opportunity, that missed opportunity that you're about to have. The CEO gets it. He's like, oh yeah, I heard that from my company. And then you bring the sandwich to a reality, and that's what's happening right now. I am very optimistic about the Hispanic community, because I think change is happening, and this is going to just trigger down. The dam is breaking, water is leaking, and this is going to happen.
Absolutely. So give us some more background on you.
Yeah, and you asked me the question about discrimination and facing. Look, I mean, like, I just don't know anybody from our community and other minorities, including women. We're not minority, but like other groups that don't have a shared sense of rejection that we have had once in our lives. We felt put at the side. There's no one I don't know, and if you forgot, try to go to that place in your mind and in your heart when you remember that feeling, because we have it, all of us have it, and that's actually one powerful moment to actually get the strength to say, like, you know what, it hurts now, but I just don't want this to happen to the next generation, so I'll endure it, and I will allow people to laugh at me because I'm Jorge, I'm not George, but I know that with that bruise, I'm just like opening and giving the access code to people and opening the door for other people. Let's be frank. This is the last generation that is going to endure that, but we have to endure it. It's going to hurt, and so we just have to do it. And for me, it's been like the story of my life. I lived 25 years in Europe, and whether it was in Germany, in Austria, or in France, or in Switzerland, where I lived for 18 years, every time I came to a business meeting with someone to discuss a very serious issue, whether it's refugees, asylum seekers, or whatever, I just came into a meeting, and there was this guy looking at me, and I knew it, I saw it, the imaginary pineapple just popping on the top of my head, and this guy was saying like, oh, rumba, exotic, and anything that I would say was not going to be taken seriously, because he was like, I've never seen anyone from your country before. Do you sleep in the street? Do you actually have donkeys, or do you have you seen cars in your life? And so I think that having that sort of like not necessarily open discrimination, but also this dismissiveness, it's something that all of us, particularly Latinas, can relate to, and that's why part of the focus that we have is on Latinas, on making sure that we understand how far we have to go, how far and what a long journey we have to go into corporate boards, to be taken seriously in senior positions in organizations, to be, to have political representation, to have the perception that we deserve, to be seen more than boobs and a great body, which is what the perception study that we said represents, that we're not seen as brains, but we're just seen as physical attributes. And that is a huge perception change that we have to do with our Latinas.
Absolutely. I mean, like even in my early 20s, I would Google, I'm in a corporate environment and I Google Latinas. I needed someone that looked like me, that understood my culture, to be in a position that said, hey, it's possible. And you're right. All I found was stereotypical. We were sexualized objects, nothing more. Either that or a maid. And that was the extent of what we were seeing. And I think it developed, especially in our generation, this like, what? And I'm glad that the buck stops here with our generation, and hopefully future generations, are thriving a little bit more with the mindset and their approach, because, and there's a lot of history that's untold and that we, that we carry in that baggage. But you mentioned so many things that I really want to touch on when it comes to this generation and moving the ball forward. Like, what do you think? Now that we are becoming more awakened and we have more Latinos understanding the power of voting in this election, we've turned up. We showed up, thankfully. But there's also this, and I hope that it has awakened within it, the importance of voting. And it's not just in primaries. We need to be represented at the table. And in order to do that, we have to show up. What are your thoughts about making sure that we engage the Latino community in the midterms and in elections that are not just the presidential election? Because we've already had trouble coming out in the presidential election, let alone them understanding, or us understanding as a community, the importance of making sure that we're showing up in every election.
I would say there's no going back. This was the one that made the shift. But there are a couple of points. The first one is we were 32 million eligible voters this election. We will be 51 eligible voters the next election. Wow. Because we're so young, we're that age in which we're going to cross. So many people are going to be over age for voting. So if you thought we were powerful this election, and if you thought we were an important bloc, you will not be able to have your campaign without our election. So we realize that our voice matters, that people care about us as a voting principle. I don't care if people are debating whether this is the Latino vote or not. Like, have everyone dissect the Latino vote as much as we can. We voted, and that for us means self-confidence. It matters. Our voice matters, and it's heard, and it's important. The number two is that I don't think any politician in the future will actually dare just to have their hola amigo, like inserted on the pre-existing campaign. They will have to actually treat us properly, target us properly, make proper promises, and there's no going backwards. No one will ever probably doubt that we matter as a voter bloc. As voters, whether it's like they want to treat us as a bloc or not, is something that probably we'll have to see. We'll have to see what the issues are. But I don't think that there's going backwards. For us as a community, I think that this is not going backwards either. And the more people understand their voice, I think that the higher the chance to get into civic engagement. For me, it's clear that there's a connotation, there's a correlation between voting and self-esteem. If there's a kid in the class that has been always treated as the least important, the most invisible, the one that never says anything that is valuable, you're never going to be able to participate. But all of a sudden, if someone says, like, you've been treated really badly, but you're the highest score of the class, chances are you have a self-confidence that allows you to say, like, I'll speak whenever I want to speak because I'm the, I'm the highest, I'm the highest of the class here. And that's why I think that the work we're doing with Hispanic Star of elevating the self-esteem of the community, of elevating and changing the perception of the community completely, will affect also civic engagement and voting.
I think that's one of the most important things, and especially in the work of Hispanic Star, is that engagement and the community engagement, and the seeing of role models, and seeing of individuals like yourself, that we are not just this square, and even culturally. In my generation, I mean, my parents are deceased, but culturally, in our generation, there are a lot of individuals that have been told by their parents or grandparents, this is your box, this is your playground, so there's a lot of mindset work that needs to happen, a lot of shifting with self-confidence and self-worth. And I think that is happening, but not at the rate, obviously, that we would want to, because it could be a lot better. I speak to Latinas all the time, and I know that there's still, there's a lot of work still to be done. We can pursue things, we can become entrepreneurs, but there's still a lot of that cultural baggage. I think it was Leguizamo that did that history thing, which I cried.
Latino history for Morris.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I cried. That whole thing, just listening to what has been robbed of us. And I think that even in our blood, without even knowing that, we knew that. And I think that it plays a role in the baggage that we carry as a culture, as a community, those unknowns. And I wish we incorporated more of that, more of the right history into our teachings.
Oh my God, but we will. And that is where we have to get more authors writing more history. That is why, like we wrote that book called The Hispanic Star Rising that we just published with 90 stories of current Hispanic stars. But we just signed a deal with Macmillan to do a children's book series of Hispanic heroes. We're going to have every children 8 to 12-year-old in the future, in a couple of years, having a box, the way that American kids have a box of Jefferson and Washington, and so we're going to have them reading about Roberto Clemente and Elena Ochoa and Sonia Sotomayor, because we need heroes, we need role models, and we will actually start doing Hispanic Star. That's a Hispanic Star children's book. We have the Hispanic Star book of heroes now. We're going to have Hispanic Star podcast. We have to start creating Hispanic Star statues, cyber statues, and so we will not stop until people can see that and hear that and learn about that. And if our story has been wrapped and taken away from history books, we will create our own books.
I hope so, and I'm looking forward to it, because we need it. We absolutely need it. Share with us, you're involved in so many things, and there's so many people listening right now that are wow, I want to accomplish so much. What are some of your habits? How do you get yourself in the right mindset to pursue life, to just go run?
I think that there's a couple of tricks and tips that I have learned throughout from incredible role models of mine, which have rounded me much more. But the first and number one is my mother, who's absolutely, who was always my hero, but this year particularly gave me the greatest lesson ever. So my mother passed away 2 months ago from COVID. She was in the hospital 169 days, and battling and fighting and loving life, and every day, just giving the virus her greatest battle. And my mom, in that battle, throughout her life, from being a professional basketball player, being in the national team of basketball of Mexico, decided to change her life and become an economist. That all of a sudden had children. 2 of them died. She studied when she had me as a kid, and she was frightened of learning a new profession and going into something more serious. And after a couple of years of being an economist, discovered that's not really what I want to do. And I really want to do is to be an actress. And in her 40s, reinvented herself again. And all through those processes, I saw my mother, and it's not that she was fearless. No, my God, she was petrified, but she didn't let fear dominate and take the decisions for her. She was clearly scared, but that didn't mean that she was not going to do it. She was able to be, like taking the pilot of her own life and decide, even if it was scary and even if it's like she was not going to let fear decide on her life. And I think that is, and the last conversation I had with my mom when she was in the hospital and before she went in to be intubated and all that, she was like, so what are you doing now with the organization? And I was like, oh my God, well, COVID, and we're doing the responsible. And she was like, but what are you doing exactly? And I was like, well, we're trying to get, what are you doing? And I was like, I think I'm trying to move the community from fear to action. And she was like, that is good. That is really good. And I think that that's part of what the biggest, I think that the biggest lesson from my mom is to not be scared. It's just to keep going and to love what you do and to not let fear take the decisions. And I think that's the biggest tip and trick that I have for all of us is go sin pena, go. And obviously, like it helps me to be disciplined and to have a structure and to exercise and to not be connected to the screen all the time. We have ingrained in our souls via hard work, and that is not bad, but it's not only about hard work, it's also smart work. So I think that having the sense of like, is do I really need to do 100%, or can this be an 85%, and having that sense of understanding where you want to be. So for me, working out, having a routine, having a schedule, being disciplined about like really taking time off and being able to be with my children, and just having very clear objectives about what do I want to achieve. And most importantly, and that's, I think that the legacy that my mom left in me and that I want to honor, is that I'm not going to ever pretend to be fearless, but I want to aim to be fear free.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry for your loss. And, I definitely can understand. I lost my mother as well. So I understand the wanting to do more, to really leave a legacy that makes them proud and, and really addresses, their own struggles, putting us here and our obligation to create something from that, and to do something with that. So I definitely feel you on that. It's been it's been such a pleasure having you. I want to know like what's next for you? Like what is your next?
So we want to get as many Hispanics as possible to feel powerful and to have the tools they need to be empowered and to be able to transform this. So we want to invite everyone to take a mirror and then show the mirror to everyone else so that we can decrease that number of 77% of Hispanics that don't know our own contributions, our own data. And that will come into many campaigns and different forms, whether it's books, whether it's history, whether it's art, whether it's concerts. We will not stop on that. But I also have an invitation for all of you, and I think that what's next is Hispanic Heritage Month. I think that that's an opportunity that we have not maximized and capitalized on. For many people, Hispanic Heritage Month is a no deal. And companies and people just do a half an hour, check the box. Yep, I've done my Hispanics for the year or whatever. And I think that we could make that the biggest thing ever, the way that Pride Month is and the way that many other opportunities are. Let's actually just like lock down a month of a year that it's ours, that people will not say anything but Hispanic, that everybody knows, and that is an opportunity for us to showcase ourselves as employees, as consumers, and as a community that is providing so much to this country. So the open invitation and what's next for me is to make sure that that Hispanic star, that symbol that you see on the back, that is like the star with the ñ on top of Español and Portuguese, is seen everywhere. In the windows of the shops, in the t-shirts, in the caps, in the talking points of people. We want to see that the way that you see rainbow, the way that you see other symbols out there, like the Sustainable Development Goals. We want to make the Hispanic Star front and center for everyone. So I invite you to join us at hispanicstar.org. We are a many, like it's growing. We have 30 Hispanic Star hubs all across the country doing relief campaigns right now. We've been able to help more than 2 million Hispanics and distribute them food and PPE and products of people that care about the community and want to support each other. So there's a lot to be done, but it is a time for Hispanics to help Hispanics to be Hispanics, to be Hispanic Stars. So this is an open invitation for all of us to join forces and do this.
I love it, and I'm sure, and we'll put all of this information also in the links and in the copy of the video itself. Claudia, I mean, I admire you so much. I mean, what you speak about, the things, your message resonates with me. It's so in line, and it's in line with a lot of people who maybe don't have that voice to articulate it as you can do it, and you are a power voice, and you are you've done so much, but I know that there's so much more inside of you to do. And I just want to thank you for being here with me and for the work that you do, because it is making a difference, whether you see it directly or not.
Thank you so very much, Sandra. Thank you, Café con Leadership. And let's be Hispanic Star, all of us, for one dream. It's time. It's our time to be seen, heard, and valued. So let's do it.
I love it. Thank you so much, Claudia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.